Hi everyone, I'm in my office here in Ottawa and I wanted to just talk with you about something that's just gone on today in the House of Commons, some questions that I was asking the government. It's about a particular case whereby an individual committed a murder in Nova Scotia. A guy named Christopher Garnier killed an off-duty police officer, dumped her body, and was actually convicted of second-degree murder. The murder was horrific, and her family is still no doubt mourning the loss of their daughter. So what ended up happening is Chris Garnier was not a veteran, never served, but apparently his father has served as a veteran. So while he was in prison, this Chris Garnier was experiencing PTSD, or prior to prison, because of the murder that he committed, he had PTSD. So Veterans Affairs was actually paying for him to get counseling for this trauma and the impact of the trauma. If you can imagine this, I mean, this is an individual that committed a horrific murder and he's got PTSD because of it. And so he's in prison, getting counseling, but he's actually getting counseling from Veterans Affairs. Now keep in mind that there are many, many veterans in this country who have actually served, who have PTSD because of the horrific things that they've experienced while they've been serving and protecting Canadians and fighting for our freedoms and for our values. And they're on the waiting list, and many of them have been told that no, that we don't have enough to give you. That's what the Prime Minister said to our veterans. We don't have enough to give you, so there isn't benefits for you. And in some cases, their families are suffering. In some cases, their families need counseling, and their families have been told no. So while their families have been told no, Chris Garnier has been told, yes, you will get benefits. So the government would have known this probably in right at the end of August. That's when it came out in the newspaper. What did they do? They did nothing. They didn't try to stop it. They didn't say this is wrong. We have to end this. This is absolutely unacceptable. The Liberals were silent on it until we got back to the House, and this past week, last week we asked a couple of questions and we keep asking questions, and the Liberals again have not answered. They have said that this individual is a family member of a veteran, and so apparently he gets to have these benefits, which is just absolutely ridiculous. I want to give you a couple of examples of what these guys, what the Liberals could do. So when we were in government back in 2010, it was revealed that Clifford Olson, who was a serial killer, was getting OAS while in prison. As soon as we heard about this as government, we immediately took steps to stop it. We knew it was wrong. It should not be happening. We acknowledged that. We took steps to stop it. Later on that year, it became known that Karla Homolka was going to be applying for a pardon. And we knew then that apparently the statistics are about 98% of people who ask for a pardon are granted a pardon. So we knew the likelihood of her getting a pardon was really high. Again, we saw that that was outrageous. It was wrong. Canadians were rightly outraged about it. And so we as Conservatives, as the Conservative government, stopped it. When a government sees that something wrong is happening and they have the ability to stop it, they should. And that's what they should be doing with these payments that are going to Chris Garnier. They should say it needs to stop and that they would stop it. But as you will see in the question that I asked today to the Minister of Veterans Affairs, that's not at all what he said, and it looks like that's not at all what they're going to do. So take a look at what the Minister said today. Speaker, in 2010, it was discovered that serial killer Clifford Olson was receiving OAS payments. Now, Conservatives saw how outrageous that was, and we immediately took steps to stop it. That same year, Karla Homolka almost got a pardon. Again, Conservatives saw how outrageous that was. We stopped it. Fast forward to today, we've learned that convicted murderer Chris Garnier, who is not a veteran, is getting veterans benefits. What do the Liberals do? Sit on their hands and do absolutely nothing. Well, then when will that minister do the right thing, stop these payments?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I cannot comment on the details of this case because, of course, a veteran is involved, and I shouldn't have to remind members opposite that their sharing of personal medical information of veterans for political gain is doubly the reason that we must protect veterans' personal information. Thank you.
The Honourable The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, that minister has the ability and the authority to stop payments from going to a convicted murderer who is not a veteran. We are not asking for information, we are asking for action. But why is it that Liberals always have the ability to defend the so-called rights of the Chris Garniers and the Omar Khattars and the returning ISIS terrorists of this world, but have excuse after excuse after excuse for doing nothing for veterans, for doing nothing to defend their ability to get support? When will the Liberals take action? Not information, action. Oh, there you have it. You saw exactly what the minister said, which was basically blaming his officials and saying he's asked his officials to find out what happened. Well, I'm just wondering, why didn't he ask his officials almost 2 months ago to find out what happened? And why hasn't he stood up now? And why didn't he stand up a week ago and say that this is wrong and that he would stop it? It seems like that's not what the Liberals do, though, is it? And it really frustrates me because we've seen them time after time, as you saw in my question that I asked. They seem to have all the time and all the ability and all the fortitude to fight like people, or fight for people like Omar Khattар, or fight for people like these ISIS terrorists that are coming back. You know, the Prime Minister's got time to meet with guys like Josh Boyle, but when it comes to standing up to what's wrong and doing what's right, like doing right by our veterans, for example, they just blame their bureaucrats and they don't take any action. You know, there is something that you can do, and I've said this before. You can call, if you have a Liberal member of Parliament, phone that Liberal member of Parliament and tell them that this is outrageous and that they need to reverse this decision and make sure this never happens again.